Hey everyone, how you guys doing? So this is going to be another little show and tell. I kind of dig these types of why is it not working? Here we go. I dig this kind of this is what I want right here. I dig these kind of presentations. So at any rate, one of the things I wanted to do was talk to you about I don't want to show you, well, you can see that a little bit. This is, what I was starting to do is to neutralize stomach acid with aromagenomics, as you can see there. And this comes to us because I've had a lot of cases in the last few weeks with regards to acid reflux, indigestion, and ulcers specifically. And the question that I got asked was, because I had recommended betaine for somebody who is living with an ulcer, and she calls me back, she says, it says on the packaging that if you have an ulcer, don't take it. Well, that comes from the mindset that acid is what caused the ulcer. Well, it actually did, but it's not the hydrochloric acid that did it, okay? Hydrochloric acid is something the body naturally produces, and when we're producing it on a level that helps us to thrive, it's not burning the tissue. We end up with acid reflux when we're not producing proper amounts of hydrochloric acid. Okay, I'll get to what that acid actually is here in a minute. So we don't produce the appropriate levels of hydrochloric acid when the body is stressed. And therefore, when the body isn't, how do I want to say this? So when the body is distressed, acetylcholine is used to activate the autonomic nervous system and to begin stimulating the production of pro-inflammatory chemicals, also known as oxidative stress. When that occurs, the hydrochloric acid is reduced, the production of it. Therefore, we end up with what we would consider leaky gut. We might experience indigestion. We might experience acid reflux and potentially even an ulcer, okay? So I had to explain to her that it was okay to take that. I did suggest to her that she include aloe just for the sake of comfort and ease, because one of the things I want to get to here is if we actually think that this is going to cause us harm, we're going to experience harm. Okay, but the fact is that hydrochloric acid is not something that's going to burn the stomach lining. It sterilizes our food before it enters the bowels. It helps which then in turn helps to regulate gut flora, and it also is supportive in the breakdown of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, because now the body can actually digest it and assimilate it more effectively. Okay, so that is in an ideal situation where acetylcholine is being used on all levels, and the body is adapting more effectively to its needs as opposed to being on chronic overdrive with regards to stress. So that said, when it comes to ulcers, it used to be believed back in, I think back in the 60s, there was a publication that basically said it was, well, I'll go over here for just a moment. This is a piece that I started working on, and I decided I wanted to talk about it here. But we in a 1967 report, the peptic ulcers appeared in families with dominant and obsessional mothers. Okay, when we come over to, no, not that one. Here, no, not this one. It's this one here. Pardon me. Don't have my windows organized properly here for you, but that's, it's me. This is live. So if we look at a peptic ulcer, we could look at, the excessive use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, okay? As well as an infection with H. pylori, and that's the interesting thing. So it used to be believed that it was excessive levels of gastric acid or stomach acid, but like I said, the hydrochloric acid is not, that's not what's causing it. There's another acid that's causing it, but it's not that. So it could very well be your medications if you take high doses of these NSAIDs. what I find interesting is like it's in the ages of, you know, if it's because of NSAIDs, it's generally women and over the age of 70. H. pylori is another bacteria. It's a bacterial infection that'll occur in the gut. I worked with a child with autism that developed H. pylori, and she was under the age of 2. So, but these types of things will actually stimulate the production because they are stressful of another acid, and that other acid is called peroxynitrous acid. And the peroxynitrous acid is in fact a reactive nitrogen species that's produced from the reactive oxygen species peroxynitrite. These two particular chemicals, yes, they are oxidative stress, yes, they are pro-inflammatory, and they're produced along the nitric oxide synthase gene, all right? And this occurs during adaptation. There's a reason the body produces these, okay? And this is what I've been searching for since writing this, is I wanted to demonstrate here that reactive oxygen species, which is your ROS, and your reactive RNS species, which is your RNS here, or reactive nitrogen species, they are in fact produced in the presence of a bacterium, as you can see right here, okay? This is stuff that gets produced and is released into the stomach, and these particular chemicals are linked to ulcerative colitis, stomach ulcers, scarring of the nerves in the brain, and things like lupus and or MS, okay? So depending on the individual genome will determine, and it could be all of it, you might end up with all of it, but the fact is that these particular chemicals are produced for a reason. And oftentimes with H. pylori, it's going to be produced to help combat that bacteria in the gut, okay? It's because we're not making our own, so therefore we have, and these bacteria are stressful. If you've been exposed to something, if you take if you just, you know, living on planet Earth these days, you're facing a lot of chemical threats, emotional threats, mental threats. I mean, there's threats all over the place, okay? And so that's what I came here to talk about. We can look at these health conditions as something that we can fix, you know, or we can approach to help restore comfort with, and, you know, and help heal the gut. At the same time, this is a really good example of what takes place when the body is threatened, like this here with the reactive oxygen species and the reactive nitrogen species. Okay, so what I want to do is show you this. I'm going to blow this up here a minute. Okay, so although this says adaptation to high temperature stress, this is what goes on in a plant. Okay, so you have changing leaf orientation, you have transpirational cooling, you've got leaf rolling, you have early maturation, alteration of membrane lipid compositions, osmoprotectants, antioxidant defense, expression of stress proteins, and signaling cascades and transcriptional control. Okay, what the hell does all that mean? It means the plant is changing according to what's going on. You know, it makes a simple change, say maybe the orientation of the leaf, maybe it might wilt a little bit, okay, to kind of reduce surface exposure to the sun. Okay, that might be the first thing that it does. So it sends out messages to kind of curl up, and that would bring on the transpirational cooling, is trying to cool itself off. When that doesn't happen, it may even roll the leaf up a little bit further, again, to minimize surface exposure to the sun and the heat. If it doesn't do it if the plant continues to be stressed by heat, you might see these leaves are going to turn brown faster. Okay, so this is what goes on in a plant when they're exposed to high temperatures. This is a stress to the plant. Although, you know, we break out into sweat and we have this is a natural occurrence. Okay, stress is a natural experience, and these adaptations are a common occurrence. This is what's going on all times. So when the body's exposed to, say, a bacteria, that's infecting the stomach, the body switches, and the nitric oxide that would naturally be utilized for any number of things, you know, mental health, sexual health, cardiovascular health, respiratory health, digestive health. Nitric oxide is important in all that, but when it's not, when there's a threat to the body, the nitric oxide synthase becomes altered in order to begin to produce the reactive oxygen species and the reactive nitrogen species. Okay, and again, that's supposed to be turned off when the threat goes away. This is where our consciousness comes in, and we can begin to actually remind ourselves that, you know, you can't do anything about a bacteria. If you got a bacterial infection, you got a bacterial infection. But learning how to check ourselves and be able to minimize our exposure to mental and emotional distress would be very similar to what goes on in these leaves. Okay, we would be able to potentially avoid, you know, additional alteration of membrane lipid compositions, because that tells you lipid is another word for fat. So it's changing the fats within the, you know, it's changing its chemistry at this point to begin to protect itself. And then it produces an antioxidant defense, and then it produces expression of stress proteins. So this is very similar to our androgens, our hormones, our stress hormones. Okay, so these are factors that are ongoing. But again, when the heat goes away, you know, once that heat wave passes, the plant can restore itself and regain itself. Okay, so that's one of the things I wanted to point out here. Another factor that I wanted, and if you don't believe that this actually occurs in the human body, I have physiology and neurobiology of stress adaptation, central role of the brain. Now, this is just an abstract. However, it was published in 2007, okay? And so the brain is a target of stress, and the hippocampus, I'm starting in the middle here, and the hippocampus was the first brain region besides the hypothalamus to be recognized as a target of glucocorticoids. Stress and stress hormones produce both adaptive and maladaptive effects on this brain throughout the life course. Early life events influence lifelong patterns of emotionality and stress responsiveness and alter the rate of brain and body aging. The hippocampus, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex undergo stress-induced structural remodeling. You guys, the brain is adjusting itself, which alters behavioral and physiological responses. As an adjunct to pharmaceutical therapy, social and behavioral interventions such as regular physical activity and social support reduces the chronic stress burden and benefit brain and body health and resilience. It says it right there, okay? If you want the link to this, let me know, and I'd be happy to send it to you. But this is the whole point to aromagenomics. Okay, we can try to control, I mean, yeah, we want to control symptoms, all right? There is a way to deal with acid reflux, indigestion. Ulcers, using oils and nutrition to do this. We can absolutely do this, but this would be support. This would be, you know, you could call it social support, but it's a support to reduce chronic stress, the chronic burden of stress, and the oils can do this because they are in fact signaling molecules. I've been saying this for years now, that the brain is being altered from a very early stage in life, and we have there's obviously a report right here that was conducted, like I said, 13 years ago, on the brain as the key organ of the response to stress because it determines what is threatening and therefore potentially stressful. See, that's an important first line right there, because it says the brain is the key organ to determine what is threatening, but we have the ability to control our thoughts, okay? So we have the ability to determine what is threatening. You know, the worry about the bills, the worry about whether or not you're going to get the next line of business, that is, although it feels like a threat, it's not actually happening to you. It's a perceived threat, and we have the ability to regulate that. This is oftentimes what's going to lead to this digestive, these stomach disruptions and disorders. And this stuff is passed on to our children, okay? We pass this stuff down. I talk about this a lot. I've pissed many people off when I've said this, that it's not the degeneration that's passed on, it's the way we think and the way we act that's passed on from generation to generation. And we're seeing an increase in degeneration. one of the greatest philosophies I've ever followed was Stoicism, and Taoism actually is very similar. It's along the same lines, and the whole concept to this is effortless. Now, effortless does not mean without action. It simply means going with the flow. We can go back to this image. I always mess this up. We can go back to the image of the plant stress, okay? And you can see how this just goes with the flow, okay? It's not trying to, it's trying to protect itself from the heat, but it knows that it can't do anything about the heat. It can only do what it can do to protect the organism. And that's what I'm seeing with our health issues, is we can do what we can do to alleviate the symptoms, okay, the discomfort. It's important to alleviate the discomfort, because the longer the discomfort continues, the more stressful the situation is, and we're just getting, so it doesn't do us any good to press on through a symptom. It's beneficial to find a way to relieve the symptom while being in action about stabilizing and regulating our thought processes and helping. Oh, I did it again. It's such a sensitive thing. But being able to, help reduce the maladaptive effects on the brain. And because those effects on the brain adapting like that is in fact going to alter the chemistry, okay? It is, I'm doing a post for Instagram right now with regards to IBS and MTHFR. The MTHFR gene, if you will, the folate cycle is located throughout the body, including in the brain. So it makes a lot of sense that the brain there's a direct correlation between the two. So, instead of looking at this going, oh, I have a defect on my MTHFR gene, why can't we look at this and going, this is a sign that my body is distressed. And so now what do I need to do to help relieve that stress and help the body readapt in a more effective, neutralizing way, so that the body can become stable and I don't have to have all these symptoms. So, strange thing probably to sound like I'm talking about there, but I hope that makes sense. And I'm just going to ask you to make sure to let me know if you have any questions. If you want any of these links that I've shared here with you, by all means, let me know. It's working with our nature is essential to being well. It's essential to our children's future. And if we want to restore comfort, because discomfort means lack of comfort. So to restore comfort and to restore ease, we've got to, it's going to take a different set of actions. Okay, so again, effortless, the Wu way of Taoism or Stoicism isn't about just letting things ride out and, and strong arming something. It's not being controlled by our emotions. It's beginning to take actions that are in alignment with the flow of nature, because as we can see, nature will adapt accordingly. Even when we have, severe fires, the ground cover does come back, okay? Nature will restore itself, and it doesn't take us, there's actually, what do I want to say? This picture here that I showed you, this on a smaller scale, came from a Google search for molecular physiology and the stress adaptation in trees, which is a current research. Some current research that's going on in Germany regarding. I didn't share that with you, but anyway, I just flipped off the screen. Anyway, but what I was trying to get at is that Germany is currently conducting a study on molecular physiology and stress adaptation in trees, and this is what prompted me to pull that slide up for you, because this is happening on a daily basis. This is the reason why essential oils, you may have the very same rosemary plant growing in two different locations, one near the ocean and one way off in the desert, and they're going to have different chemistry because of their location. They are going to adapt accordingly to their environment so that they can survive. And this is what the human body is doing. And when we learn to work with this, that's the nature of aromagenomics, is working with our nature, and helping it to, like I said, neutralize and stabilize its reactions to the world around. And yes, we do want to be protected. You know, obviously the body is capable of protecting us. It's our turn to help protect the body from overstimulation. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Hope you guys are well. Be blessed, and I will be back soon.